Welcome back to another episode where we're going to focus on how to eat clean as a family without breaking our budget. We are going to talk about how we can buy less processed foods, save money, and not give up some of our family's favorite recipes. We'll also talk about how to plan our meals to stretch our food budget and, of course, spend less time cooking. This episode is brought to you by the Family KickStart Program. This is MOMables 30-day whole food program. It's designed for busy families who want to eliminate processed foods and added sugars from their diet without having to give up on some of those recipes and foods that everyone loves. Of course, the ingredients and recipes are not only kid approved, but also budget friendly. So for more information on the Family KickStart Program, head over to momables.com/Family KickStart Program or in the show notes and below this video. So Paula, today we are going to talk about how to keep ourselves within a budget, right? When we go out and eat cleaner foods or when we go out and purchase cleaner foods to eat, because I know that a lot of people email us and say, hey, this is great. I want to eat healthier, but it's so expensive.
Yes, every day it feels like we get those emails.
We get emails. Yeah, we sure do.
It's so expensive. What do I do? And I know from my own experience that clean eating isn't as expensive as I thought it would be, but we still can't get around that boxes are really cheap. Like that little macaroni and cheese box is like 50 cents and you do get a whole meal out of that.
Or $1.29 for the organic. And you're like, okay, that's pretty, and it's organic, we tell ourselves. So
right.
Now you do not have to give up on that box of mac and cheese if that's something your family really enjoys once in a while. But our goal in this season is to talk about making healthier changes so that box of mac and cheese isn't something that you reach for 2 and 3 times a week because that's like the one side your kids will eat, right?
Exactly. So how do we start cutting costs without sacrificing health and getting those boxes every day?
Yeah. So there's so much you can do to cut costs without having to sit there and clip coupons or go to 5 grocery stores. Because remember, I always, at my forefront of my thinking is, how do I do this with my family? Okay, because I understand that there are moms out there who are very, very good at clipping coupons and literally, I've heard stories where people make money on their grocery trip. But that is just not the kind of grocery experience that I have, okay? Because I work full time and then some, and like many of you guys, my family's in activities and we get home late. So for me, it's super important to, number one, plan out my meals for the week. They're not gourmet meals, and it doesn't mean that every day has got to be something different. There is a lot of variety, but variety does not mean going to a different restaurant every night. It just means incorporating different foods, different ingredients into our meals, because different foods and different ingredients give us different nutritional benefits, right? So that is the whole point of eating cleaner and healthier, is to make sure that the foods that we eat are providing us with all of that, and then you don't have to spend $100 on supplements for your family a month, right? You could spend that in better ingredients or and cut back in some of those supplements. So anyways, back to the budget. Number one, make a plan for your food. This is the number one thing I preach, and I've been preaching for years. Since I launched MOMables in 2011, is making a plan for your food is so important, because that's how I taught myself how to cook, by following recipes and following a plan. And years ago, I also only had about $100 a week to feed my family. And even though my kids were younger, we did have a teenage exchange student with us. So I was always feeding, give or take 4. And if any of you have teenagers, you know that they can like eat you under their table, like it's like they're bottomless pits. So I really had to get very creative. And in a way I didn't know I could. And that's why I started sharing recipes, because I shared what worked for me. And it's not like, oh, I only had $100, but I swiped that credit card and sometimes it was $150 and sometimes it was $122. And no, like I went to the grocery store with a cash envelope. I had $400 for the month. Many years ago, my husband and I were trying to get ourselves debt free. So we followed a cash envelope system. When he got paid, he set money aside for our mortgage, utilities on average, this and that. And then I would write out a check, or, this is years ago. So like I would write out a check, go to the bank and get $400 in cash for the month. And that had to pay for, formula or like anything that I was supplementing, right? So that does not include, something to clarify here is that the food budget is not inclusive of like laundry soap or paper towels, things like that. Those are household items, which you should have a budget for, or find ways to, spend less. Like in my house, like we still use this pack of like really absorbent, reusable towels to clean everything, like the green ones. We like a Sam's Club or Costco size thing of paper towels lasts like 9 months at my house, because paper towels is not what we use to dry our hands. We have hand towels that get switched out once, twice a day. Like those go in the laundry. And then we have cleaning towels. So I just kind of wanted to, while this is about food, I wanted to kind of make that distinction that toothpaste or household cleaning items and products, those are part of a household budget, not food. So a food budget, because I know a lot of parents email me and they're like, I'm spending like $300 at the grocery. And I'm like, does that include toilet paper, paper towels, so those are separate items. So for the purpose of like understanding a food budget and eating healthy, it's really about the things that you put into your mouth and eat. Alcohol is also part of the food budget. So if you drink wine or alcoholic beverages and you're on a budget, you know that that's going to basically like use up a lot of the budget, or it's more expensive. So that's something to take into consideration. But anyway, meal plan, or plan your meals around budget-friendly ingredients. That was a huge one for me. And that's really why I started creating meal plans back in 2011 and sharing them online. It was because I needed to learn to cook, and I did that by following recipes. And once I figured out how to create a really juicy and great chicken breast, I started sharing that online, and then developing recipes that were budget friendly, that gave me like that juicy chicken breast my family loved. Or sometimes just really getting creative with other cuts of chicken that were more affordable, right? So that's like another thing. So creating a plan and then writing a shopping list. You've got to stick to your list. When I first started, that was just so hard. And I was a person, while I didn't walk around with a calculator, once my daughter, when she was like 5, I think first grade-ish or so, like she knew kind of like numbers. She was the one with a calculator. So it kind of wasn't as embarrassed, because it was more like a game. So it seemed like my kid was adding up what was in the grocery cart. So now we have phones. Gosh, I had to think back, but now we have phones. So you can easily like use the calculator in your phone. So it's not like back when I didn't even have a cell phone, I literally had a calculator in my purse, you guys. So sticking to the list that you make is super important. And another way you can stick to that list is by ordering your groceries online. So for many years, I've been a Walmart shopper for a long time, and I still am, and they're not sponsoring or paying me to tell you this. But I found that like that's what my grocery budget could afford, right? And they had all the brands that my other grocery store offered, but often at like 20 and 30 cents less per, for that bag of rice. And, if you add that up, like the 30 cents would add up to a lot of extra dollars in my envelope, So I was one of the first people to try out like that online ordering and then pickup. I was like, not only does it save time, but it saves me from going in and wandering the aisles and adding stuff into my cart. And the only way I would go in if it's like they didn't have an ingredient, so then I would stop at another grocery where I have to get the ingredient. So that is one of like the best ways I found that to save money. And now, of course, like there's many grocery stores offer online ordering. So, you know, and even the bulk, like Sam's Club, BJ's, Costco. I also order and pick up because sometimes I go in, but when I go in, I still stick to my list. I use something called, I have an app on my phone called Wonderlist that is shared between my husband and I, so we can all add in the ingredients or things that, you know, he's home, he works from home now. So whenever he runs out of something, he adds it to our list. But creating a list and sticking to your list, and then finding a method to stick to your list. And if you have to chew gum as you walk through the grocery store, because you're the type of person that like gets really excited or your mouth waters when you like see the ice cream aisle or the bakery section, then that's just what you have to, that's why I used to do that. So sticking to your list is super important. Number one, make a plan. Number two, stick to the list from the grocery plan. Use simple ingredients. Like we have for a while, like I grew up in Spain, and in Spain we always have fish once or twice a week. Well, when we were on $100 weekly budget, having fish or seafood once or twice a week was just not something that I could afford. So I cut back to once a week or every other week, or I would buy white fish like cod or tilapia that was less expensive and find delicious recipes that kind of, a lot of people complain that like tilapia is kind of fishy. We'll find recipes that mask that taste. So a lot of the fish recipes that I have on my cookbooks and online are very simple but very flavorful for that reason. So if you have to cut back on the glamorous feel of your recipe, you're getting a lot of nutrition, but you're also getting a lot of flavor, which is super important. Other ways you can cut back on that is like, you know, less expensive versions of ingredients without sacrificing quality. Is if a recipe calls for boneless, skinless chicken breast, which like it seems like 99% of the chicken recipes out there call for boneless, skinless chicken breast. And I want to tell you guys the secret is that the reason they call out for that is because it's very easy to measure and to cook with. So it's very easy for us as recipe developers to measure the yield of a recipe when it's like a pound. Because most people look at the chicken breast and they're like, I'm going to serve 1 or 2 people with it. So as somebody that, as a shopper, it's easy to recognize how many servings that is, more than like boneless, skinless thighs, for example. So a lot of us like know the portion by seeing the size. So that's why a lot of recipes have that. It's also almost foolproof to cook with, right? Like it cooks at 165 Fahrenheit. It's all done what, I know the pink cooks through white. So, but again, you know, boneless, skinless chicken breast, that's like, you know, relatively good quality. It's maybe either anywhere between $5.99, $6.99 a pound, right? Or even more if you're shopping for an organic brand. So cutting that cost with something like boneless, skinless thighs, it's going to already cut it down from $6.99 to $3.99 on average, right? So that's $3 per pound. So if your recipe calls for 1.5 pounds, you just saved $4.50. $4.50 buys the rest of the ingredients on the recipe of the recipes for the most part. So that's kind of like the things I think about when I'm creating recipes, cutting costs without sacrificing ingredients. I know chicken is like a really big deal for a lot of people because a lot of us eat a lot of chicken. So I'll also link where I purchase chicken online, both in the show notes and below this video. So you guys can check out how you can get chicken on bulk that's high quality and priced right. So if that's of interest to you, you can do that. Well, there's, let's see, simple ingredients, using leftovers. Oh my gosh. I really should have had another coffee. using up leftovers. In a previous podcast, I kind of mentioned and hinted at like cook once, eat twice. One of the things that I do with my family is at the beginning of the week, I cook a lot of rice, okay? Because it's a really easy side to heat and eat. And I actually have one kid who's like a rice eater. He prefers rice over anything else. So there's always ready to go rice in the refrigerator to heat and eat and serve as a side, but not always white. Like I can just put it on the pan with a little olive oil, a little bit of garlic. Now it's like really delicious. Or I can throw it into a soup. So again, like very inexpensive. And should there be leftover rice for whatever reason, my dog is always really happy about that. Hey, now that we have a dog, it's like we really don't have leftovers. But utilizing leftovers is a huge one. Like if you have leftover roasted vegetables, you can throw those into mini quiches. So utilizing leftovers, not just by heating and eating, but repurposing them and give them like a whole new life. So that will slash your grocery budget as well. Let's see. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about stocking up and what kinds of things to stock up that are budget friendly. I think you mentioned that. Is that your next question, Paula?
No, not really. I think that while we're kind of on the topic of meal planning, because we talked a lot about that in episode 1.
Yes.
I know that I've been guilty of this, so I think maybe a lot of the other listeners have too, that meal planning is just kind of randomly picking recipes. And then when I start talking to you about meal planning, it is so much more strategic than that. It's not just like on Monday I want this, on Tuesday I want that. There's this whole like epic strategy session that you put into your meal planning that makes it so much better.
I have you to keep me on track, Paula.
So tell us about strategic meal planning, both for budget and for health, and how to do that.
Yes. So what Paula is really referring to is the notion of maybe depends on how tight your budget is. And everybody wants to spend less at the grocery. This is something we can all agree on. But there's a difference if you're trying to feed your family of 4 or more, but of 4, for example, on $100 a week versus $200 a week, right? Like there's just so much more flexibility. And not just like cutting by using chicken breast versus like thighs or organic and non-organic. I'm talking about the variety of foods that you can afford, right? Like, I can go to Sam's Club and get this humongous bag of romaine lettuce, romaine hearts for like $3.48 or $3.28. And that's for $3.28, that's an entire lettuce yield for the week. Or I can buy a bag salad mix for $3.98, and that's like maybe one family salad as a side, right? So that's really where like the distinction comes in. And if you're wondering, I still buy that big bag of romaine hearts because I can make lettuce cups. I can use it in burgers. I can shred them small for tacos. I can really like dice it and slice it any way I want. So it's not just for budget, but also for preferences and using that same ingredient in many different ways. There are ways that you can strategically plan your meals. And what I mean by that is maybe like if you're just getting started, I talked about this last season with picky eaters, but this also applies to budget eating. Make themed nights. When I was really, really tight on my grocery budget, and sometimes we kind of like, not like ran out of food, but we were like ran out of like meat protein. We always have eggs. So we had like breakfast night, like twice a week. And my kids were thrilled. Okay. One breakfast night might've been like waffles and fresh fruit and maybe, scrambled egg or an egg. Another night might've been like quiche or, scrambled or omelet bar. But again, like planning your themes. So like maybe you can do 2 breakfast nights per week. Breakfast night is not like boxed sugary cereal and milk for dinner. It means like scrambling eggs, serving some fruit, fruit that it's going to yield larger portions. So maybe like, for a whole family, you can do like 3 large apples and you slice them up in slices and, serve them on the side, or maybe make a fruit salad. Visiting the frozen aisle is also a great tip. Okay, I'm jumping around. So theme nights, if you can eat gluten or pasta night is also another way to get a lot of veggies in a meal, because pasta is kid friendly, and you can kind of make, you can flavor it in many different ways, not just pasta with marinara sauce, but you can make it like into pad thai and kind of go Indian inspired, or you can give it, soy sauce and make it like into Asian noodles. So you can use that same inexpensive ingredient in many different ways. And then you need less protein, because a lot of these whole grains also have protein per serving, and it's really important to understand how much protein we really need for our bodies versus how much we think, or the internet makes us think we need. So make sure you look that up. There's many websites that you can put in your body weight, activity level, and go like, wow, like I only need like the equivalent of a chicken breast plus a yogurt a day. And here we're having like chicken breast, a yogurt, eggs, protein bars, protein drinks, and we're like, we're over proteining, and that stuff is expensive. So anyway, theme nights. So you could do a breakfast night, a pasta night, a meatless night. So maybe that's like something using like a bean soup, or or slow cooker meal. The slow cooker is a great place for you to, a great resource and a great place for you to find meatless meals, because a lot of these are very flavorful, but you don't feel like your family's eating a bowl of roasted vegetables. Okay, so like, or stir fries is another great meatless meal, as well, or veggie burgers, or bean burgers. Then you can also have, pizza night. I, for many years, I think my pizza dough recipes in like 3 of my cookbooks, because like it's so easy, so inexpensive, and it's very budget friendly. So I can go to the grocery store or Whole Foods and buy a ball of pizza dough for, I think it's like $3.29 or something. Or I can make it for like 70 cents if I just have flour and a little bit of yeast in my freezer, and water, tiny bit of olive oil, and you're good to go, and you have amazing pizza dough, and it basically does its thing by itself. So 70 cents per meal versus 3 cents. So again, pizza night's really great. So planning out your themes or your meal is very important, and it's a really easy way to start, because if you don't have a meal plan, or you don't subscribe to a meal plan, and you're just literally trying to go on the internet for recipes, if you just go, Monday is a meatless night, so I got to find a meatless recipe. There's millions on the internet. So now how do I make it simpler? Oh, I'm going to do a slow cooker meatless recipe. So you can go find that. Now your categories kind of shrink, and you have less options, so you don't get overwhelmed. And then you can go, okay, Tuesday could be an easy Taco Tuesday night. Of course, I have to suggest that. And their taco night is relatively inexpensive, unless you get into like more customized cuts of meat. Okay, Wednesday can be a pasta night. And again, you can also save time by cooking the pasta ahead of time, plain, and keeping it in the refrigerator, and then you can toss it in with some sauce, or like red sauce or meat sauce. You can toss it in with vegetables from the freezer. I mean, you can make it so inexpensive. That's Wednesday. Thursday could be like a baked potato bar, for example, or like basically like a bar night, or a breakfast night. Friday can be your pizza night, and Saturday can be your bar or breakfast night. And then people are like, well, what about Sunday? Well, Sunday is, I call it like family supper. Like Sundays, I make like that epic recipe that's going to yield stuff for the week. And with that, I'll use into lunches, or I'll roast chickens and make chicken salad, or I'll roast chickens and make, save some for sandwiches, another one for chicken quesadillas or chicken tacos on Tuesday. So if I'm cooking, I'm going to like make the most out of it. I'm going to make white rice for that soup or stew, So theme nights it's a really simple way to get started, to eat cleaner and on a budget, because it allows you to kind of like customize it by the ingredients that you may have in your pantry. So you don't always have to go buy everything every single week. So that's theme night. That's the type A. And then the other way that you can meal prep is meal plan for the week is simply by going out there and saying, I want 3 new recipes this week, just 3. And you're going to make a bigger batch of that recipe. So like double it. And now you can skip a day. So all you have to do is plan. This is like the kind of like the dummy's guide to meal planning. It's like pick 3 of whatever it is and double up on it. So Monday you'll have recipe 1. Tuesday you'll have recipe 2. Wednesday you'll have recipe 1. Thursday you'll have recipe 3. Friday you'll have recipe 2. Saturday you'll have 3 again. So you kind of skip a day, and then you never feel like you're eating the same thing. So that's like that. Those are my 2 basic methods. And then when you do that, you'll always have leftovers. You'll always have something, you can heat up and put in a thermos for lunch. Like we're mainly focusing on dinner because dinner seems to be like what really blows our budget for most of us. And when we're home tired and we want convenience foods and we want to find those shortcuts. So those are my 2 dummy methods for meal planning. Number 1, theme nights. Number 2, the 3 and go.
I love that. And I think that one of the most interesting things you said was the Sundays you plan to make things for the rest of the week, which is something that I think a lot of us, you're doing that so naturally for so many years now, but a lot of us miss out on the opportunity to kind of overcook almost that big chicken that you're not going to eat all of or something. And this is something that I think is really neat that you actually teach people how to do in Family Kickstart and even in your weekly meal plans, which I would love for you to talk a little bit about how Kickstart kind of does this for you. Like you've kind of explained how we can learn how to do this ourselves, but you also do this for us, which makes life a whole lot easier, especially when you're trying to implement a new eating plan. So how does that kind of work for people?
Yeah. So like I think I mentioned in a previous podcast that the Family KickStart program really came about because for years, for health reasons, I had to eat paleo and grain-free for 7 years, while my family was still eating without dietary restrictions. And so I had to kind of figure out a way to combine the meals and the recipes so they would eat it. So I was cooking only once. I also had to eat ketogenic for 18 months cycling. So meaning like I had to eat very extremely low carb or ketogenic for a month, for about 6 weeks, and then just low carb for 30 days, and then very strictly ketogenic for another 6 weeks, and under doctor supervision. But anyway, so I just really found that it was so much work to eat differently than your family. Like, and then one of my doctor said, okay, I also tried the Whole30 program, which I love. But there's so many restrictions in that program. If you really want to follow it strictly, like you cannot recreate your favorite foods with approved ingredients. So basically my kids could, I was making amazing, fluffy, regular pancakes for my family while I was salivating on Sunday nights, on Sunday mornings, or waffles or whatever it was. And I'm like, oh. And that's why I felt great because of what I was eating. I felt left out myself, like I want to participate. So I honestly, I love Whole30 for 30 days, but it's very difficult to implement long-term when you have a family. If you cook for yourself, shoot, it's super easy because like you just basically cook what you just prepped and on repeat. But when you have a family, they're going to one pasta night and they're one I want like, to eat out or eat things that you're going to be just sitting there staring and I just have one bite. And I just have one bite becomes a guilt trip or within yourself, or like, oh, I just, nixed all the stuff that I've been doing. So what I started doing, I said, this is crazy. After my second round, I think it was, I think it was my second round of Whole30. I felt the physical benefits, like I wasn't bloated anymore. I didn't do it to lose weight, because a lot of you guys always email me like, you don't need to do these things and diets to lose weight. You're so small already. Like, I had to do a lot of intestinal healing and make sure that I didn't, keep my autoimmune stuff on track. And I was fighting my thyroid, very sluggish, slow thyroid, high TSH. So I was doing a lot of these things for my health, not for caloric restriction or losing weight. And as a matter of fact, like, I've never lost weight on Whole30 or ketogenic or paleo diet, because that's not why my body needed to do it. So, but the point of the Family Kickstart is, after the second round, I looked around and I was like, this is so great. I feel so good eating these foods, and my recipes are delicious. And then I looked at my family and I'm like, number one, they're being left out on the benefit of eating better and cleaner. So I felt guilty because, I was healing myself. I was getting nutrition from food. And then I was kind of like dismissing that importance on them and letting them still eat drive-through or snacky foods, or just really, it made me feel guilty as a mom, because I felt like I wasn't prioritizing their health as much as mine. And my kids didn't need to lose weight. For me, it's more about the nutrition and teaching them how to eat a variety of foods, which we've talked about this in the previous season. So I started thinking, okay, if I'm going to make this recipe that is now, with approved ingredients, how can I make that so that my kids will eat it too? So number one, I'm only cooking one meal, so I'm not exhausted. And number two, so I feel really good about what I'm feeding my family, because I'm feeling good about what I'm putting to my body. I want to feel good about what they eat as well. And a lot of times, the recipes were a hit. Sometimes they were a miss, and the hit ones stuck to the plan, to the Family KickStart program, and the ones that didn't, they got ditched really fast. And my kids are very verbal about what they eat and they don't eat. But unlike the Whole30 program, the Family KickStart program, it does allow for some of our family's favorite foods, like pancakes or muffins, but they're made with nutritionally dense ingredients and no added sugar. So they're made with like a banana, for example, in order to sweeten the batter, or a date or two, or and coconut flour or almond flour. We even have nut-free versions, because I'm very conscious of allergy substitutions. And even to take it up a notch, I was like, okay, I've got a kid who will eat cauliflower rice, but my other two sons are like, no way. So we created two levels. So like the very strict level, like mostly like what Whole30 would be, where that us adults are like, you know what, it's for my health, I'm going to do that. And then there's the kid version, which is the exact same meal that we were already making, but instead of maybe serving it over cauliflower rice, it's served over plain rice, like real rice, right? And again, you just heard me say you can cook the rice ahead of time and just heat it and serve it. So it's not like, oh, I got to make a whole other thing. No, you're prepping it for the week, and now you know how many of those recipes will need it, and then you just plan accordingly. So that's really how the Family Kickstart came about. It was to help myself follow a Whole30 program and take my family on that journey. And not because they were eating so much junk food, because I wanted to be less dependent on that 3 o'clock craving for a snack or a snack before dinner. And when that time came, I wanted them to be receptive to eating, a piece of fruit or some hummus, or, that's why I have like that entire snack list, or things that you can have ready to eat in the program, because I don't want to reach and grab for those snacky ingredients. Now, do we eat like that all the time? No. But again, it's a reset program. It's a kickstart. So it's going to retrain the taste buds or our kids' taste buds to not rely on those like foods that give us that emotional high, like, that high carb and high sugar foods. And we're going to retrain the taste buds to crave, maybe crunchy, like apple slices, or we have dips in the program. And we have, I personally love a lot of texture in my food. So, but I have a child who doesn't like texture anything. He likes softer foods. Like a lot of parents call this, like, I've got a kid who just wants to eat mac and cheese and chicken nuggets because they're soft textured foods and they're white or yellow. So a lot of it is because A, we keep buying it, and B, that's what their taste buds are trained. So is it difficult? But for a lot of families, it's a bit of a change in the beginning. That's why a couple of years after we created the Kickstart program, I created a 7-day reset, which is essentially kind of like a transition week where you're still eating the same favorite foods, and you're still eating, if you can eat gluten, you're still eating gluten, you're still eating rice, like you're still eating the things that our family likes, but you're getting used to what that meal prep may look like. We break it down into different days. So it gives you the Kickstart experience with traditional foods, like a slow cooker roast and a chicken. And a lot of the recipes that I have on YouTube and on the site, you can piecemeal. I think both my websites, laurafuentes.com and momables.com, in the recipe index, you can click and select a filter to show you the Kickstart approved and the Whole30 approved recipes. So that those recipes have been tested, not just with my kids, but thousands of families who've purchased the program and have used it. So that's why I think it's so beneficial to follow a program that gives you guidelines, because we're busy, right? Like, I just want to be told what to do. That's why I go to the gym. I'm not somebody that's very undisciplined, but I squirrel. Like, I can get distracted, right, really quickly, because other things look more appealing and appetizing, both in food and even at the gym, right? So that's why I have to go to a fitness class. So an instructor, the teacher, they tell me what to do next, and they keep me motivated. So, and I'm held accountable because I know I'm going to be there the following week. So that's why I really like when people choose to follow a program that maps things out for them, so it's easier to implement.
Totally. And I love that you send along in Kickstart, you send the meal plan, you send the meal prep guide, you send the shopping list. Everything is literally laid out because you've already done that work, and there's no reason for everybody to kind of reinvent the wheel every time they go through it. It just makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, right. And all of the things, I mean, I know this is like an episode about staying on a budget and how to eat clean on a budget, but all the things that are inside of Kickstart are going to help you do these this whole eating program in a budget-friendly way, because you are going to have a checklist to order your groceries or shop for groceries, or to look at your pantry and see what you have, or maybe swap out, right? Like if it calls for chicken breast, again, like buy a leaner cut of meat. Like, it makes it so doable, right? The prep allows you to know exactly what you have to do. You save time. And so if you're saving time, you don't have to buy some foods that are more convenient because they save you on time. If you know what to prep and now you just have to heat and eat, you can reduce the cost of food by buying the item in bulk, or in a way that even though you cook it, it's basically like, the slow cooker may do it for you, right? And then of course the plan is like the trainer at the gym. It's going to tell you exactly what to do, exactly what to eat. And you're not going to be eating spinach omelets for breakfast. I mean, if you want to, you can. you're going to eat maybe eating like mini quiches, or, and if your kids don't eat it with, what's awesome about the little quiches that you basically is baked eggs. A baking pan has like either 12 or 24, depending on the size that you use, for the cupcake pan. And, you can do, this row is mine. This row is like, like I use the 12 one, and, 4 or 5 of us like eat out of it. So I just make a variety of ones that I know my kids will eat. And then I'll make a row with like all the green stuff that I eat and I know they won't touch. So again, it's really about not wasting any ingredients, right? Because if the food is ready for you to just heat it and eat it, or you have a good meal planned, you're not going to drive through convenient stuff. You're not going to spend more money on pre-chop and pre-cut. Like, you're going to get your kid to do that. If your kid's 8 or older, they can like totally help out with a lot of the prep work. And again, I think we definitely talked about this on the last season, but don't be afraid to ask for help so that it's not as overwhelming for you, right? We're going to talk about this more this season, but if you just don't know where to get started, there's tons of resources on both of my websites, on the recipe index, we'll link it below, where you can select clean eating recipes, Kickstart. They're all budget friendly, and that are going to help you not spend as much money in the grocery store. And want to make sure we link that right below this video and on the show notes. No more questions? I think we have a lot for next week, huh?
I think,
totally.
Yeah, we have so much for next week. So I think this is good for our
You guys, I don't want to keep you listening for longer. So, but next week is another awesome episode that Paula and I have planned for you. And if you're just catching up, check the links in the show notes or the description box. And if you have picky eaters, we have an entire season designated to picky eating as well, because that can be challenging. So we'll see you next week.